Red Bull's dominance is at the beginning of its end, and Max Verstappen is well aware of this, seeing as the team put all on his card and is going to put all their hopes on his driving prowess this season. Now, anyone and everyone would do that, seeing as Max is a generational talent and arguably the best driver on the grid right now, but the Dutch driver knows how things stand and because of it has sent out a warning that not even him may save the season if the team doesn't get their act together. When Red Bull unveiled its RB20 for pre-season testing in Bahrain, there were ominous signs of another dominant season in 2024. Fast forward 4 months and the competitive landscape has changed dramatically. Mercedes has finally unlocked the potential of its ground effect car with a series of upgrades, and McLaren has continued its impressive development path. Ferrari, despite encountering issues with its latest upgrade package, has remained competitive on circuits that suit the SF24. 5 drivers from 4 different teams have won one of the past 7 Grands Prix, which is great news for Formula 1 fans as the second half of 2024 promises to be thrilling. For Red Bull, not so much. So where has its substantial early season advantage gone? The traditional explanation is that teams tend to converge as regulations remain stable, with Red Bull having less performance to extract from the current rules. Meanwhile, rival teams that fell short in 2022 and 2023 are gradually finding solutions to problems Red Bull had already solved, figuring out how to generate downforce and performance across various corner types with these low-slung ground effect cars. Add to this the sliding scale of development time, which reduces wind tunnel and CFD runs based on a team's success, and Red Bull faces a double whammy of an early lead turning into a long-term disadvantage. "I think they got to a kind of terminal velocity quicker than the rest of us," said McLaren CEO Zak Brown. "There does come a point of diminishing returns as far as just how much you can continue to develop a car. To their credit, they got there first and now we're all just caught up, or almost caught up." While clashing with Brown on a number of topics recently, for once Red Bull team boss Christian Horner agreed with him. "It's no secret that we have less development time than the others, and we're at the top of the curve, so you're into diminishing returns," he said. Max Verstappen is determined not to accept the current situation as inevitable and is urging his team to focus on making improvements. He believes it's not normal to be content with the current state and stresses the importance of continuous hard work to avoid being overtaken by competitors. Verstappen is actively involved in working with the engineers and is pushing for updates to be implemented more quickly. Since the start of the ground effect era in 2022, Red Bull has been the dominant force in F1, with Verstappen and the team securing both drivers and constructors' titles. Verstappen's dominance is evident in his record-breaking number of wins in a single season, which has propelled him to his titles. However, the current season tells a different story at the midway point. Despite Verstappen still leading the standings, victories have been spread across several drivers, both Ferrari drivers, both Mercedes drivers, and McLaren's Lando Norris, while Sergio Perez's struggles have opened the door for a title battle in the Constructors' Championship. The sliding scale regulations introduced alongside the budget cap aim to level the playing field by granting the bottom team 45% more testing time than the championship winning team, with each of the 10 teams receiving increments of 5%. When asked if these regulations were affecting Red Bull's dominance, Verstappen responded, "Naturally, it will always help to have more time, but that's how the rules are, right? To try to slow down the winning team. When you are the ones chasing, you are happy when it is like that, and when you are the ones leading and being caught up during the season, you look at it like it is not what you want. But that's how the rules are written. Everyone agrees with it and you just have to deal with it." Verstappen had beaten the nearest non-Red Bull challenger, Carlos Sainz, by 25 seconds in the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix, but with Mercedes joining McLaren and Ferrari in the fight for wins, when the Scuderia is not battling issues with its own upgrade package, the 3-time champion has already called for update efforts to continue. The team arrived at the British Grand Prix with an upgrade package. Though damage picked up in Q1 meant Verstappen was unable to fully display the improvements through qualifying. Verstappen was happy with the package and said that if he didn't have floor damage, they would have fought for pole. The question is, how much more can Red Bull extract from its RB20, especially as we approach the summer shutdown and teams begin focusing more on their 2025 cars? When Red Bull unveiled its distinctly different RB20, it indicated that the team from Milton Keynes wasn't complacent after its previous successes and was fully committed to staying ahead for the rest of the rules cycle. Initially, the RB20 did give Red Bull a significant advantage, but most of the performance improvements came early on, leaving less potential for substantial gains as the season progresses. Chief Engineer Paul Monahan noted that Red Bull might be reaching the limits of what can be achieved under the current regulations, with diminishing returns and further development. Team Principal Christian Horner remains optimistic that upcoming updates will make a difference, but he acknowledges that any improvements will now come from fine-tuning the smallest details, a challenge faced by all leading teams. Exactly how worried Red Bull should be is not always clear, because various elements have made the pecking order harder to pick out. A string of bumpy circuits, which has been Red Bull's long-time Achilles heel, meant the RB20 looked worse than it is, but contrary to the paddock's expectations, the McLaren still appeared quicker over one lap in Barcelona. But then Austria came and Verstappen convincingly won the sprint and took pole for the Grand Prix by 4/10 over a 1-minute lap, stopping rivals in their tracks at just how large their advantage was. In Silverstone, both McLaren and Mercedes appeared slightly quicker depending on the conditions, which suggests the ability to keep tires in the right temperature and performance window is making a bigger difference than outright pace. For the first time in 2 years, the Verstappen-Red Bull combination no longer looks unbeatable in a straight fight. The pace of the McLaren and potentially the Mercedes, now that Ferrari have hit a bit of a slump, are now close enough to Red Bull to force Verstappen to push to the limits. In doing so, he's exposing hitherto unknown weaknesses in Red Bull's package and potentially presenting opportunities for others to snatch victories in Formula One. While Red Bull will almost certainly reassert its dominance over the field at certain circuits in the second part of the season as well, it's clear the step McLaren has made in the past period means races like Imola, Miami, among others, are also on the cards going forward. Ferrari will also be a factor when the conditions are right, with the team confident its upgrades had the desired effect and the car will get better sooner rather than later. But also we have to note that every design has diminishing returns and Red Bull has always been closer to the top end of theirs than everyone else. There's less room for error now than there was towards the end of 2022 and all of last year. There definitely were times when Red Bull missed the setup last year and they still coasted to wins because they had Max and peak strategy on days when Max wasn't his best, and that is not going to be the case this year. Verstappen managed to win 51 points over the triple header compared to 43 for Oscar Piastri, 42 for George Russell and 40 for Hamilton and Lando Norris, and this is another advantage for Red Bull. Even when they don't have the fastest car, both Verstappen and the team demonstrate the precision and consistency of world champions, capitalizing on the mistakes of other teams, particularly McLaren. Red Bull arguably hasn't had the fastest car for most, if not all, of the past 7 race weekends, yet Verstappen has still won 3 of those races and aside from Monaco has outscored his closest competitor Norris in all the others. While concerns about the car's performance and Sergio Perez's ongoing struggles are significant, Red Bull's superior race execution could still secure them the championship this year. Do you think Red Bull will lose a bunch more races this year? Let us know down in the comments. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.